So the first question, recently we've heard news that the PUD will likely need to raise rates by 7.1% in 2025 and 25% in 2026. What's your stance on this news, and would you support the rate increase? And we'll ask Angie Brown to go first.
Hi, thank you. And thank you all for being here. I've been sitting through the budget meetings for the PUD and looking at the finances and where they're at, if they're having a deficit, I believe it's about $1 million. And that it is projected that Chronicle is going to raise the rates at 13% to us. 13%. I do believe that there is an increase that is required at this point. I think that how it was handled, we have not raised rates in 3 years. I believe that it was not raised. I know some of it was through COVID, and also just the commissioners wanted to not raise rates. I respect that decision, except I feel like if we would have done smaller increases each year, it would have been less of a hard hit on our consumers. And so the ratepayers are now going to have this large hit to their bank account, and it will hurt. I think that we have to think more logically of, as inflation goes up, cost of everything goes up, the fuel that they use at the PUD, insurance, all of our, we see that in all of our industries. And it has raised, and with the power consumption, I think it's necessary to do a rate increase. I wish it wasn't so high, but I believe it's a necessary evil that they have to do this year, for this coming years.
Thank you, Fenn.
Yes, quite frankly, the increases are necessary. There was a new wage settlement with the union members. There were significant increases, but basically it matches what area PUDs in our area have done. Or the employees, as I understand it, they're paid basically the same as the other area PUDs. And quite frankly, I shouldn't say everything has gone up. In my world of agriculture, prices have actually gone down, but that's not the PUD's problem, that's my problem. So yes, I think those raises were justified. The raises in rates to the customers are justified in order to keep the PUD in a financially sound position.
All right, thank you both. Our second question will start with you, Dave. And there has been much discussion about the new smart meters the PUD has been installing. What are your overall thoughts on smart meters?
I've had several discussions with folks about the smart meters. I understand it's a very difficult subject for some people, but quite frankly, the smart meters in terms of the radio frequency that they broadcast is far less than, I don't have my cell phone in my pocket, but it's far less than that cell phone that most people carry with them. The broadcasting is for a very, very short period of time. It's a fraction of a second as I understand it. The advantage of the smart meters is that it's going to save the PUD basically about $1 million a year, because when it's fully functional, it is not there yet. There will not need to be the regular force of meters that there has been. So that will be a significant saving. It also has the advantage that the PUD will know instantly if somebody's power is not working for some reason. We had a power outage in our area, and everybody in the area was fixed but my sister, who lives about a mile from me, and she didn't realize that everybody else's power was on, but hers wasn't. When I called, they did not realize hers was off. If there had been smart meters, the crew would have known that her power was not on before they left the area. So it has that advantage also. And the power can be turned on and off remotely, so that a service fellow will not have to go and manually turn power on and off. So there's another potential saving from the use of the smart meters.
Thank you. Angie?
I think Dave and I definitely see a little bit of a same end here. I know that, like he was talking about the cell phone transmission. I mean, that's 10,000 more waves than the smart meter. I think baby monitor is 7 times more. I do know that there are people that it's a very controversial subject. I do believe that the cost savings to the PUD and just the accessibility of knowing when outages are. I work as a secretary for my local fire department, and the one thing that we dealt with this year was we had some very high power bills. We didn't know why. We still don't exactly know why. We had someone come out. Something obviously was running. With a smart meter, you can monitor. I could look by hour and know what was running at that time. So knowing instantly. I also work in the title and escrow field, and I see people that don't make it to the PUD when they've just bought a house, and then they have to pay extra to have someone come out to do service. With this, it's they can hit a button, they don't have to pay someone to come out and do that. So I see a lot of advantages with it, and honestly, with 130 million, operating safely around the United States, we were actually a little bit behind the curve on getting the AMI meters, and so I think that this is a positive thing for Lewis County.
All right, next question. Lewis County is expanding broadband service to rural areas of Lewis County. Should the PUD be in the broadband business, and if so, why? And I've lost track of who
We'll start with Angie.
Okay, thank you. So the broadband, I'm a broadband champion. I've been part of the broadband project since it started in Lewis County. I understand where there's a lot of opinions about us being in that business, but I don't necessarily think that's what we're doing. What we're doing is we're helping provide lines so there is more competitive service, and so that there is service. I live in a rural area. I live in the Dryad area, and I have Starlink at this point because I cannot get service at my house for anything else. And I think we've seen what happened through COVID with children learning, not having access. My boss, she lives in the Adna area, and she had to drive her son to the school to get on their Wi-Fi to do school during COVID because they didn't have adequate services at their house. The other part is this whole project does not cost any money to the ratepayers. They've, secured $50 million, which is in grants, which is more than any other utility in the state, to put these lines in. And I think this just helps all of us. There's so many people working from home, especially during COVID. And I also look at the elderly that can do telecommunication. They can now do appointments through the internet, and this is just a good thing all around for our county.
I'm old enough to live in an area. I can remember when our house was wired for electricity. I remember the age of gas lights, a battery to run a radio to listen to was a big deal when my mother got an electric stove to cook on. So the PUD was responsible for that power to come to our area. And this is a similar situation for the broadband because we're in a rural area and it's not profitable for quality broadband for a private company. And the federal government is providing these grants to the PUD to make this broadband available to everyone. And they have an advantage that the poles are already there to hang the wire on. So it's only, to me, it seems rational that the PUD would be the agency that would provide that broadband to the folks.
All right, thank you. Question 4, and we'll start with you, Dave. Members of the PUD Commission opposed the plans for the Fortescue project in Centralia that has since stalled. What are your thoughts on the project and more broadly, green energy or renewable energy in general?
My first thought, I came to the meeting when it was presented here about hydrogen several months ago. And from talking to various people and reading various things, I think that hydrogen and hydrogen production and use is kind of the the desire to have it work is ahead of the actual ability to do that. So it's not up to the PUD to decide if somebody wants to produce hydrogen or not. It's a matter of, that's their job, is to provide power. The concern is that it would use so much power that the PUD may have to buy power from a higher cost, and that potentially could affect the rates of the ratepayers we have now. But it's really not a PUD-related issue in terms of is this green energy and the cost of these green energies really a positive thing for our economy in general. And like my understanding is there are no highway freight trucks that are able to use efficiently and economically hydrogen power to move freight. And that would be one of the biggest issues. Is this a viable economic thing to do? But again, that's not the PUD's decision to make. The PUD's job is to provide power, and hopefully we can provide power in a manner that does not raise rates to the general public.
I agree with Dave on that, that I think the biggest concern, it's not a PUD issue, it's not power that we would be generating, but I believe it could be very expensive. Green energy is expensive, it's the highest, energy. And some of that with Fortescue, I love the idea of building up our iPad. I think that is what the Economic Alliance was trying to do, was to encourage growth in our area and kind of replace some of those jobs that we lost with TransAlta. I do believe that it would be the commissioner's job to get in front of it and find out if it is going to affect our rates, and whether that be some type of contract with whoever, whatever hydrogen company were to come in, to make sure that didn't happen, that we're not paying more because of the rates of the power usage that they're using. Green energy is, on paper it looks great, but we live in Washington State. So when you talk about solar and wind power and hydrogen, we're pretty far off from that. And in Washington, I think so the green energy aspect is really hard, because when we're having a cold front, I think it was in February last year where we had a massive cold. We also had some in December, I believe, too. And what happens is wind is not blowing, and solar, we have no sun, and we're having to go back to the coal and the gas. And so I have some feelings on that, but I don't think that's technically your question, but I do think that we don't want to see our job as the PUD commissioner is to control rates and make sure that our ratepayers aren't paying for that.
Thank you. Angie, what experience do you have that would best prepare you to serve as a PUD commissioner?
So over the years, I have worked on a customer review board for the PUD. I've been part of the Broadband Champion project. And I've been on nonprofit boards for over 20 years. I've served on the school board. I have dealt with budgets. I really think the goal of a PUD commissioner, we have 3 jobs. It's to set policy, set a budget, and to hire and fire the manager. And then, our job is not the day-to-day. That's why we have a manager to oversee that. So I think the most important thing is, take care of the budget and make sure we're taking care of our ratepayers. I feel like I have that experience because I've set over budgets. I currently reside as treasurer for the Visiting Nurses Foundation, and I'm president-elect on United Way of Lewis County. I've looked over budgets for years with them. I've been on the executive team of United Way for 15 years probably, working on their budgets and setting policy. And I also feel the job that I do, I'm a 24/7 girl. What I do for the title company, I'm always available. I feel like I do customer service. That is my job, to be that middleman between the customers and the company. And I feel like I could just continue that, because we need to have a voice. This is our PUD, and we need to have a voice for that.
Thank you, Dave. Same question.
I'm not a young person, so I've had a variety of experiences. I got a degree from Pacific Lutheran in education, and was a math major and taught for 7 years. I came back to the farm. I'm in my 49th year of farming, and we managed to make it work. We actually make money. I know a lot of farmers complain about not making money, but there are some tough years, but there have been some good years. Along with that, for 20 years, I've been partner in the farm store. So I've had the retail experience there. In fact, the daughter and son-in-law just bought out my partner, and I bought out the real estate portion of it with another daughter. I've served on a variety of boards. I've been on the Conservation District Board for over 20 years. I was on the Fire Department Commissioner in Boyster for over 20 years. I served as treasurer for the Washington Association of Conservation Districts for 4 years. I'm currently the assessors on the Assessors Advisory Committee for that sets the rates for property that's in agriculture property. I'm on the Flood Control Zone Districts Advisory Committee. So I've had a variety of board experiences where you're both working with budgets, setting budgets, and you're working with a group of people to make your organization operate successfully.
Thank you. Questions?
All right, we'll take questions and you'll each have 1 minute to respond.
So, big budget y'all be watching over. This is kind of a question. Yeah. This kind of a question for Angie Brown. You being tied into the PL fire crew, apparently there was some delayed payments, monthly payments to the fire crew members for their monthly call-out payments. And that you're responsible for making those checks show up, and they didn't show up for a long time. Could you talk about that? Because it goes to, can you manage big money at this particular job?
I actually don't pay. They do like a call. If they transport, they do get a stipend. And I don't make that payment. It's handled by someone else on the department. So what happens is I shouldn't say that. I do turn it into our accountant, but I have to receive that. I don't have access to the reporting of that. And I have not received that. You are correct. I actually haven't received anything for that for this year at all. But I don't have access to the program that they use, and so they have to provide me with their call sheets and what hours that I need to bill for. And then I turn it into our accountant. But I don't have access to the actual fire department systems. I'm just, because I work for the commissioners, and I do the bill payment and things like that and the retirements, but I don't have access to that part.
I have no response to that.
I just had a question when you guys mentioned the information about cell phones being so much more radiation, and I just was wondering where you got that information in smart meters. When I heard that, I did some research myself, and I just wondered if you've ever heard of Professor Hirsch, the nuclear department at University of California, San Diego. Anyway, he was asked by 2 senators there in California, this was back into around 2010 and 11, that they were concerned because PG&E was the one that did the original study that showed that cell phones were more than what smart meters were. And then they had the U.S. California Council of Science and Technology, they did the review. So Professor Hirsch agreed to do the review. It wasn't something he wanted to do, but he did and found a lot of problems with their study where the same guy with PG&E walked over and did it for the California Council of Science and Technology. He also found that they did not compare things equally. He tried to get a hold of them to have them they would not.
What's your question?
My question is, have you checked this study? Because he showed that cell phones are far less. Smart meters were up to 160 times more radiation. I want to know if they are familiar with Professor Hirsch in his study. Have you checked into that, or where did you guys get your source of that information?
We'll start with Dave and then Angie.
No, I am not familiar with that study. Some of my information has come from what the PUD manager has explained in terms of his understanding, or I'm assuming that this decision was made about 5 years ago, and the meters are just now being installed because COVID held the whole process up. And I don't know, but I would hope that they did some studies about the safety and those issues. This is not just going on in the local PUD, this is going on across the world, the use of these meters. So I'm afraid I have not read that study.
Thank you.
I also am not familiar with that study. Some of the data that I collected was my own research online through the PUD and also with Puget Sound Energy. I did some research with them, with their meters that they've done in the past. So like Dave, I'm not familiar with that. I know that this project has been in the works for a long time, and we are one of the slower ones in the state. I know City of Centralia have already installed these meters. But I'm not familiar with that study, and I'd be glad to get more information on that from you.
Okay, last question.
My name is Frank Corbin, and I'm the chair of the Lewis County Broadband Action Team, and I have been advocating for broadband expansion throughout Lewis County for some years now. And the PUD has just embarked a few years ago on a broadband network that would be open infrastructure access, which would allow private ISPs to lease fiber space from the PUD to provide services, thus creating a new marketplace for broadband competition. Where do you stand on the PUD's broadband project? Would you in fact continue to support it and expand it? Or do you have other ideas that the PUD perhaps maybe shouldn't be involved in?
Correct. I wholeheartedly support the broadband project. I think it's a great project. I think it's bringing services to our rural areas that not only help with, I'm in the housing market, and so with real estate, it's very important that they have internet access because so many people are working from home now. I also believe, like I stated earlier, that the healthcare world has changed dramatically by being able to do telecare from home. And I also think if we go through something like we did with COVID again, the access for kids to be able to have access, adequate access to learning is essential to our county. So I 100% would continue to push for it.
Yes, I didn't get a chance to say it before. As you said, the PUD is basically supplying infrastructure for other companies to rent that space to provide the actual internet connection for you. So the PUD technically is not operating the broadband, they're just supplying the physical structure that someone else can, the individual customer can deal with. So yes, I think it's a great project that they're doing because they're bringing something to areas that a private company really can't afford to do on their own. And it's being done by grants from the federal government. It's not being paid for by the customers of the local PUD.
Thank you to both of you for being here tonight.
I just want to thank you folks that have hung on for a long time to listen to the two of us.